Well, the show's going on, and I have been transferred down.
So I missed the first. I missed the first.
Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome back. Welcome back to our little school session here. I was realizing that, I really miss getting up in front of a classroom. It's painful to retire from UK, but it's a lot easier to be given 2 or 3 lectures a semester than 5 or 10 per week. So this is a real treat. Oh, good. You can actually slide it down. Very good. Thank you. Well done. So, a little bit of kind of a recap of what were the kind of key ideas of what we were saying last time. So, last session was entitled "The Doomers versus the Boomers," where boomers is not people our age; it's people who think that AI is going to usher an enormous boom of creativity and economic growth, and all kinds of cool stuff are going to happen. And I find myself really leaning towards the boomer side. It's just so exciting, all the things that are going on. But the doomers are really right too, right? There's serious big problems. But the thing I tried to emphasize last time is there's kind of 2 kinds of doomers. One is the Terminator scenario, like where we're all destroyed by killer robots, and that's what I call the zombie apocalypse scenario, right? It's really scary, but there's like no way to get there that I know of, right? There's no way there's no path to get from here to the Terminator scenario. So there's no way to prepare for it. So I call it, that's like an unknown. But the other doomer side is the disruptive technology. The things are changing so fast that we can't kind of keep up with them. That we have to make human progress always requires changes in how we do things. So it's always happened, but this is happening so fast. We're really scrambling to keep up, and that's definitely going on. Right, that's definitely going on. So that's kind of where I want to focus today. But I think there's at least a couple of us who are actually already using ChatGPT in the work you do. Does anybody have anything to say about how you're using it, what you're doing with it?
Playing around with it to see what my grandchildren are doing.
Okay.
I'm a former teacher, so I'm interested in how they're using it to do things in education.
There's a lot to be said for playing around with stuff to see what people are doing. I'm really thinking that the world I want to see is a world where machines are doing all the grunt work, and we're free to do the creative, fun stuff. Right? I was just thinking that our biggest single biggest worry about AI is it's going to take everybody's jobs. Right? So they're going to need to kind of rethink what we mean by a job. Right? Why do we need jobs? Well, society needs us to have jobs so that things work. Who was it, like the leader of the first colony in America, who said, "He who does not work, neither shall he eat." Right? When the first colonists arrived in America. Right? But then when I was young, women. All American women spent all of their time doing like childcare and housework, things that are absolutely critical tasks to making society work, but they're not considered productive work because they're not a job. All right. So I think that's one of the things that needs to be disrupted, is our idea of what we have to do so that we're like useful members of society. Anyway. So let's finish looking up some of the things that are potential problems that have to do with this new disruptive technology. Right? Oh, you got to click in here. and then it could go there. Yeah, so one of the big things that people are worried about is deep fakes, especially in political campaigns. Right. So I'm still unsure whether this picture is intended to make people vote against Donald Trump or for him. All right. I don't know. Right. But this kind of fakery or disinformation has always been part of politics. But what's new is the technology that they can use to do it. So these deep fakes are kind of a new thing. These are like automatically auto-generated. You can make anybody look like anything you want, right? And you can do videos, make anybody look like anything you want. And micro-targeting, right? The micro-targeting is political ads or political information that's targeted directly to you as an individual. There was a controversy involved in a few years ago in allowing a company that does political advertising, a political company to use a whole bunch of Facebook data. And the Facebook didn't realize what they were going to do with this data. The leader of this company said, you give me 100 likes from your Facebook account, and I'll know you as well as your spouse knows you. You give me 300 likes, and I will know you better than you know yourself. So given that kind of information, they can craft messages that are particularly tailored to each of our personal biases, right? And present them to us, right? So this is the kind of stuff that's going to be going on. Probably we'll be seeing some of that in this current election cycle. But the Georgia House recently passed a bill to outlaw deepfakes in political campaigns. So if somebody's thinking that there's an issue and they need to do something about it. Again, society is scrambling to catch up with the rapid technological changes that we've got. Okay.
So is there
yeah.
a way, I mean, other than like that picture had a lot wrong with it. You can tell that that's.
Yeah, you can tell that that's
But so there's no way that you can tell that something isn't real. I mean, there's nothing like embedded in, I don't know what I'm talking about, but like the metadata of the picture, or
yes.
Are we just like at the mercy of whatever they
show us? Yeah, that's an issue. And so the tech people are working on that. What they would like to be able to do is to create a watermark. Like when you have an official document, it's got the stamp on it, you can tell it's really official, nobody faked it, right? So they're trying to build these like digital watermarks and require all pictures on like Facebook or Meta, right? To have this watermark so that you can tell whether they're real or fake pictures, right? But the technologists are not really confident because at the same time people are working to build these watermarks, there's other people working to see how to defeat them, right? So hopefully we'll be able to do this where you can actually look at a picture and say, well, yeah, that's an actual fake picture, right? Yeah, that one kind of struck me because why is the sleeve, white sleeve showing? He's got a suit on, right? That's something a little wrong with that, right? It's a good example of why ChatGPT is not ready to replace artists. Right? And that's really important in terms of what we're doing now. This technology is not to be used to replace people. It's used as tools to make people more creative. Right? That's the idea. So pretty soon they'll be able to get a picture that doesn't have these errors. They're getting better and better all the time. So that is a real issue, right? People are trying to deal with it. It's another example of there's all these creative things that can be done, but we're really going to have to work fast to kind of keep up with how we do it. Yes.
The Times had a series where they put up a series of pictures and you could guess whether they were AI generated or not. I mean, I think there were 8 pictures or 10 pictures. I mean, I got like 3 right. I mean, the rest, I could not tell the difference. Some are really obvious. Some are just right on the money. There's no way to tell.
Yeah, I'm going to give you an example of that in a second. Yeah.
This Georgia House bill, how do you prosecute?
Well,
I mean, what do they do?
well, so it's going to be a felony offense to use a deep fake in a political ad within 90 days of an election. So somebody they've got to be able to look at the ad and say, well, this is a fake, right? If the technology is so good that they can't tell whether it's a fake, how can they can't prosecute you, right?
Who prosecutes?
Well, let's see. I guess
Attorney General,
I guess, yeah.
Democrat.
Well, it's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting. This is all done. This is all done by Republican legislature, right?
Yeah,
right.
Okay.
So apparently they're not looking at this picture and saying, "Yeah, we need more of those in the next election cycle," right? But some. I think what I'm getting is that enough elected officials are beginning to think that there's enough of a problem here that might actually bleed across the partisan divide, which this would be my optimistic hope for what's going on. People will actually say, yeah, Republican or Democrat, they got an issue here. All right. Here's why I think the biggest fear that I've seen, it's bigger than the fear of losing jobs, is a AI engineered pandemic. Create something that's much less like COVID, only much more deadly, for example, right? And of course, this is the sort of thing where they've got enormous growth in technology, mostly like these viral labs all over the world, where they still don't know for sure whether COVID escaped from a Chinese virus lab. They think it probably did not, but they can't say 100% that it didn't happen. And so they're thinking, okay, what happens if a bad actor wants to set something loose? So they set some red teams to say, okay, can you kind of make a plan for how this would do it, right? I asked ChatGPT about this, and ChatGPT says, I'm not talking about this. Yeah, but somebody else has built a large language model that would talk about it, sure, right? So far that this is not considered a credible threat, but what I think we have to look forward to is all of these limitations of why they can't do this are can be overcome at some point with better, more information, better technology. So we have to think about how we can use this technology to be prepared for something like an engineered pandemic. Right? And we've got organizations that are working on exactly that. But that's pretty scary. Okay, this is the article I ran into from a friend who pointed out that this particular guy, Ian Brenner, had some interesting things to say. Right, he's a political scientist and kind of consultant, and he at least to listen to him talk. He says he gets to talk to lots of like heads of state and high officials and stuff like that. Right, so it does seem like pretty well connected, right? And he wrote this article just a couple of months after ChatGPT came out, and in this article he said, 6 months ago, all of the heads of state, cabinet ministers, everybody they was talking to, nobody was thinking about AI. Now everybody is. Right? People realize that, well, wait a minute, we got a real problem here. But what he's saying is our governments lack the expertise and the institutions to deal with this stuff. Here's some of the things that he thinks you're going to be seeing in the next 1 to 3 years. Massive disinformation on both the political space and the market space as well. You fake ads for things that aren't really what they seem. Much more malware than we've been seeing, smarter malware, better malware, and targeting spear phishing, right? Targeting spear phishing, right? So what are we talking about? Spear phishing. I don't know if you're familiar with this term. So phishing, as you probably know, is like these little ads that you get that try to trick you into clicking a link so they can get some information that they will eventually use to steal something from you. That's phishing. Spear phishing is when that message that you get is personalized, which it uses information that they know about you. So I've made up a theoretical spear phishing attack, and then the red text is the things that are specific to you. You, Mary Stanley, actually did make a trip to Amsterdam, right, on February 10th, 2024. So it's much more plausible that you would get this from your trusted bank, right? That says, hey, somebody withdrew $1,000 from your ATM, from an ATM machine. Was that you? Right? This stuff is very good. It's very powerful. And I'm a really trusting person. So I'm really vulnerable to this. My wife had to hold me back from going over to Target to buy some gift cards for somebody. It sounded, I forget even what the scam was, but it sounded like something I really needed to deal with, right? So how do we actually deal with it? So one of the things you need to do if you're getting an email address, the email address should be part of the company that you're getting for, right? So if you're getting this thing, oh, this is mybank.com, you have to talk to our customer support system. Well, they give us this email address. Yeah, that's not the email address of the bank, right? So, and look for unusual requests. Certainly, going to get gift cards at Target is an unusual request. I should have thought about that, right? And urgent or threatening languages. You've got to do this right now, or else the feds are going to come after you and haul you off to jail, right? So when you see all this stuff, if you get any twinge of suspicion, just call up the regular tech support. What I typically do is I Google Target gift card scam. And it'll also, this scam is doing X, Y, and Z. Oh yeah, they just about got me, right? So that's one of the things that we kind of need to watch out for. Yeah.
So you don't have to go through a person face scan no more. This is a shortcut.
What's that?
I said you don't have to go through a person face scan to find out all the information no more.
It's all on the internet. It's all like some message that you sent on Meta to somebody. Hey, this is really cool. Look at me in Amsterdam, right? They can get all this information, and the AI allows them to divide this up into individual attacks. So each individual attack is like 99.9% likely to fail, maybe, right? But just put 1 million of them out there, and 1,000 of them will succeed. So that's one place where I think that's an immediate place where as individuals, we immediately need to ramp up our game on looking at stuff like that, right? But here's a little bit about what the governments are beginning to do now, right? So they're focusing on what they call frontier AI, which is new stuff. The idea the new models, next generation of models that are more powerful than, say, GPT-4. What are they trying to do? Well, they're trying to figure out how to deal with this. But I think if you look at these actions that the governments are taking, they really support Ian Brenner's idea that governments are just not up to speed. Governments do not have the expertise, the infrastructure, or the legislation to deal with these problems so they're happening so fast. So if you look at this is the first one's a presidential executive order on AI safety, right? And he lists about 50 different government organizations that are tasked with dealing with the AI problem, like in terms of privacy, in terms of worker security, in terms of civil rights, in terms of all different kinds of things. But when you look at the language, these organizations are tasked to figure out what to do, which means they don't know what to do. Right? We don't have the in-place expertise. So all these different organizations are going to have to start from ground zero to say, okay, let's kind of figure out what's going on here, right? And then hopefully they'll be able to come up with something that actually works. So what Ian Bremmer's concern was is that things are going to happen and governments are going to do things that are reactive and stupid because we don't really know what to do, right? Just prohibit everything, right? It might be that rule against deep fakes in Georgia elections is reactive and stupid. It might be overkill. It might be that a big fine would work better than a prison sentence. They make this a felony offense, right? So we don't know because our governments are still scrambling to catch up. Then on the international level, then it's an agreement to share scientific data. They did this at the Bletchley Mansion, which is where Alan Turing was working in World War II to overcome the German cryptography. So I thought that was kind of a cool place to have an international convention. And again, this is kind of like dealing with climate change. It's a global issue. You can't, if you've had almost every country is going to refuse to bake bad software, but there's one country that's still going to do it, right? Russia's still going to do it or whatever, then you've got a real problem. And again, compared to the climate problem, it took several years to kind of get up the organization, the IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change that deals with climate change. It took several years for them to get that thing up to speed and for governments to start taking it seriously and actually work. It's hard and slow for governments to make changes, and the technology is happening really fast. Okay? So now I'm going to switch from the doomer side to the boomer side. Now I'm going to talk about all the really cool things, why I'm super excited about this technology. Yeah.
Just one comment on the other
Yeah,
section you were in.
Yeah.
So, you talk about government regulations, and you wonder when the corporations are going to get involved. For example, the Super Bowl ad for Temu, T-E-M-U, really inexpensive women's clothing line. Occasionally I've gone onto some of that type of site, and they really seem like not very good. So sure enough, I Googled it. Who is this company? And they have a list this long of customer complaints and things that they do. Basically, they grab your information and they get right into your life. And I'm thinking, okay, so they ran this ad. Why are the people who are in charge of collecting ads saying, hey, is this a credible company? Do we really want this to be on the Super Bowl week where every woman in the world's going to check this out? And they're, when are the corporations going to start to say, hey, let's just find out who wants to run this ad? It was so obvious. They're not credible.
What does that stand for?
I don't know. That's just the name of the company. It's Temu's Clothing, and just Google Temu ad on Super Bowl, and then you see all these things that they do wrong.
I'm just wondering.
They just get into your business, get into your accounts, get into your life. That's all they're doing this for.
Chinese companies ship stuff direct as opposed to Amazon that has to import and pay duties on stuff and warehouses.
Yeah.
And that's not a good reputation.
So I'm gonna get it together.
Although,
Yeah,
you could probably look up any company that advertises in the Super Bowl and find a list of complaints.
But these are where they do, what would you call it?
Evil is special.
Well, perhaps, but
This is
Spear
what they
fishing?
do. They do something fishing, spear fishing. Yeah, their whole business is just to get your info and your credit card and just spear fishing.
Yeah. You have a question?
Just kind of sort of along with his line, you have to be sure that it's criminal activity before you can limit what a company can do. We might not like it, but it's our responsibility to look into these things and not go forward. And I think the government regulations, the new things that they're coming out with, will sort of manage that. But at this point, just because they sell faulty, clothing or whatever, they probably do have a list because they sell they're everywhere. Yeah, I mean, all over the internet. Before this Super Bowl? Oh, yeah. There's been several things. Yeah.
Well, think of how long it takes between when you start to have a problem till the government starts to think of what kind of laws and regulations you would do to present this problem, until people start getting charged and lawyers start appealing because their rights are are violated, right? And eventually it kind of filters out where you can actually more or less stop this bad act without taking away people's civil rights. But it takes a long time to do that. The things are happening really, really fast. One of the things that Ian Brenneman made out is right now the decisions on how this technology are being made are made by a handful of people, including guys like Sam Altman, right? Sam Altman is over Capitol Hill all the time trying to persuade senators that, hey, we got a real problem, but he spends 95% of his time making his GPT work better and faster than the other guy's GPT. And there's this arms race, this AI arms race going on between different companies like Google versus Microsoft, both placing thousands of people to say who can get their search engine to be the smartest, the fastest, right? And different countries, right? So yeah, we got this huge problem with AI, but we need to get first. Right? So it's a lot of energy going on here, and there's it's going to take a while for governments to kind of catch up with that. So kind of in the meantime, we have to use our best judgment and become a lot more discerning, right? Like you said, we need to check out these companies that we've never dealt with before, and what kind of things that they do, right? So I got really interested in this particular book. It was written by this guy, Reid Hoffman, who's an IT entrepreneur and venture capitalist. So he's very, very much a capitalist kind of guy, and he's really looking at how this AI can really help us in the like economic sphere. But he listed GPT-4 as kind of a co-author. Right? He says his next book is going to have GPT-4 as a full co-author. So this whole book consists of a whole lot of kind of dialogues between Reid Hoffman and GPT-4, and they're coming up with this, especially GPT-4 is coming up with this enormously long laundry list of all the super cool things that you can do with this technology. But at the same time, they're going to talk about all the different problems that this is going to bring up. That's disruptive technology. It's changing, and we have to change the way we do things, right? So as we go through and we talk about some of these really cool things that we can do with this technology, I want to encourage you to just blurt out what the problems are. You don't have to raise your hand, all right? Just say, hey, wait a minute, there's a big problem with this right here. And I bet you're going to be right. And we're going to have to deal with all these problems. But in the meantime, we're going to be doing some really, really cool things with this technology. That's why I'm kind of find myself on the side of the boomers rather than doomers, because it is just so many creative things that we can do. Okay? So first question, we talked about this last time, is how can you tell that your students aren't using this technology to write their term papers? Right? And I thought this is kind of interesting because that was people's initial reaction, right? When I talked to teachers, that's the first thing they said, all right, is how do we keep our students from using this, right? But this guy, Stephen Mink, didn't put his name on. Stephen Mink is his name, right? He's like a super award-winning professor, right? And he says you're gonna use this GPT to write their term papers, but you're going to analyze and critique the work that they're doing, right? So that what you're actually being asked to do is at a higher conceptual level than just writing the paper itself. It reminds me, like when I was a teacher, sometimes the parents would come up and they say, hey, you're not teaching our kids to do long division anymore. And I would say, they don't need to know how to do long division. There's all this other stuff they need to know. So this guy is saying, what are the other things that students need to know if they no longer need to know like so much how to craft a grammatical sentence, right? So how to ask good questions. Well, that certainly happened to me when Google search came along. I realized, wait a minute, what I teach needs to needs to change, right? You're no longer filling students with information because they can get the information off of Google. What they need to know is how to ask the question. All right. So I started saying, okay, of all the billions of documents out there on the web, there is a document that exactly answers your question. All right. Now find 3 words that are in that document, the one that exactly answers your question and are not in most of the other documents. And then you'll nail it on the very first hit. So I found that I started grading students much more on how they remember the vocab and what they, not just the words, but what their context was, where you'd use a certain word, right? Where you would talk about a feedback loop, what it was and where you would talk about, right? So that was an example of minor changes in what I was doing to kind of give our students the skills that they need now, not the skills that we needed when we grew up, right? But another thing that's kind of come out from this in the in kind of treatment of what to do with this technology. One of the things that this technology can do, do we have any? I know we got at least one teacher, or I'm the teacher. I think so. You're a teacher, right? You've been teachers. One of the things teachers spend a whole lot of time on is grading papers. All right. And so this technology can grade papers. Now you'll want to check over it, but it can save a whole lot. It can save a whole lot of the time. It's going to be much easier to check over the work of a computer real quick than it is to actually read through the document yourself, which could free you up to do all the other creative things that you don't have time to, right? This technology can create individualized assignments and individualized tests for each student based on what they need to know as you measured with your assignments and tests. Right? That's the sort of thing that it can be used to do. But in practice, the technology is being used to monitor teachers. I don't know if you've dealt with school administrations, right? I get the impression I got away with murder as a UGA faculty, but I get the impression if I were a K through 12 teacher, I'd be much more closely monitored to like see how much I was actually producing, right? So I think that's something that needs to be disrupted. All right, the technology means we need to change the way that we do things, and the administrators haven't figured that out yet. All right. So I got these real possibilities, but we can't use them because the infrastructure and the structures and the policies haven't changed yet. So it'll allow us to use them. Yeah.
So I had a little personal experience using Chat GPT.
Oh, yes, please share.
My former school district had a school board controversy. And so one night, because I'm not involved with them anymore, I just said, write me a 2-minute speech to give to the school board regarding this issue. And it did and I explained the parameters. So I had to critically think what were the most important issues that I wanted to present. And then it produced it. It was within 2 minutes. But as I went through it, I had to carefully evaluate what was said because there was some wrong information in it. And I thought to myself, well, I was a math teacher, so but if I were an English teacher, I'd love to use this and have the students be able to critically think about what they'd written and make decisions on what was good and what was not good. So I just thought this is amazing instructional tool.
There you go. There you go. That's exactly what we're talking about, right? It hallucinates. So you can't trust everything that says, but it gives you lots and lots of good ideas that you can use your intelligence and your knowledge and your values and your goals to work it up into what you really need to do. Right? That's kind of the idea. So we're not going to get replaced by this thing. This thing is going to make us better at doing what we're trying to do. That's the idea. That's kind of the boomer take on it. So I got real interested in this idea that it's capable of the GPT-4 is capable of actually building images, right? So my wife said, let me try this. Draw an image of a woman galloping a horse in an open field using a naturalistic style. Now, I don't know jack about art. I totally do not know jack about art. I can not tell you whether this is good art or not, but I like it. I like it. I think it looks pretty to me, right? But my wife said, darn it, all the women images are always attractive young women, right? Why doesn't anybody make some really cool old women, right? So draw an image of an old warrior woman galloping a horse over an open field in the impressionistic style. That's great, but with a beard? Yeah, so I figure all of the information that it was trained with, its corpus of information that was trained with, all of the images of old warriors had beards. All right, so it couldn't imagine an old warrior without a beard. All right, so something like this. This is why ChatGPT is not ready to replace visual arts. All right, but if you wanted to do this picture, that might be kind of a cool starting point, and you can get ChatGPT to make several examples of what it might look like. Right, and it would take you. Okay, help you with your creative process. Right? Yeah, yeah. So a lot of people are using this using this tool in this way. Computer programmers are using ChatGPT to help them write programs, right? And they've become much more efficient. Of course, writers have become much more efficient. They can produce more stuff. But then the problem is, if each computer programmer can do 50% more programming in a day's time, then you only need 2/3 as many programmers to do the job. That's kind of the job loss fallacy. And economists talk about this as a fallacy because it's what they call the lump of labor fallacy. The lump of labor fallacy is that there's only so many jobs. All right, and if you make something more efficient, so you don't need as many workers to do this job, then somebody's going to be unemployed because there's only so many jobs. Right? But the idea is that in a functioning, progressing, growing economy, you're going to lose jobs. You have to lose jobs, but you're going to gain new jobs and invent new jobs that didn't exist before. That's kind of the idea. But again, the problem is that things are changing so fast. You've got somebody who's been, working their whole life as a certain job, right? They've really worked hard. They do a good job. They raise a family. All of a sudden, bam, you don't need this job anymore. But you should retrain yourself to be an AI engineer. That kind of transition. That's the kind of transition that we need to make. I don't think we should expect that person to be an AI engineer if they've already been working on this job their whole life. I'd say give them early retirement. You're like a military veteran. You served the cause, the whole of society of bringing this industrial civilization to work. You should, if you're no longer needed, put you out to pasture. To spend the rest of your life playing with ChatGPT. You can have a lot of fun with that. So again, there's the possibilities, but there's lots of changes that we need to make. It's disruptive technology. It forces us to change the way we do things, and I think it's going to force us to change the way we think about work. Right? Think about what it means to be useful in society. Right? We do lots of things. There's lots of things that are really useful and really important, but we don't take the time to do them because we don't have the time or doing too much other stuff. Let's figure out a way to make these machines do all this grunt work and spend our time doing the more creative stuff. That's the ideal. And I don't think we're really going to be able to stop this technology from happening. So we've got to find ways to really use it and grow with it, right? Not just fight with it, make our lives more fun and more productive and better and juster and more, just more aware of our place in the world and more conscious of how we can actually be doing good. Okay, that's what I want to see. So how? Okay, so Reid Hoffman asked ChatGPT, okay, tell me how all these different people would use ChatGPT. How would a video game designer use ChatGPT? Right? I said, well, you know, if you think about it, in a video game, the thing about every different move the user makes is going to branch off to a different possible future. So a complex video game, there might be thousands of different ways it could end up going. So you could generate like a separate dialogue for each one of those thousands of different ways and make it more realistic, right? And our architect can develop 3D models. They'll say, build me 5 or 6 3D models of this house that I want to build. And I'll take a look and say, no, this one isn't right. That one's totally wrong. That one's totally wrong. That one's got some potential. That one's got some potential, but this gives me an idea of what I can do. Again, it's not going to replace the architect. It's going to be a tool for the architect to help her do a better job, right? And more creative and hopefully more interesting job. So people who use this technology tend to like it. You liked it when you used ChatGPT to write that letter. It was fun. It made it easier to do and a better product, right? Okay, hip hop choreographer. Dance moves based on the style of music. And I thought about, wait. Yeah, you're gonna get a computer to write like hip hop dance moves, right? This sounds a little sketchy. Well, there's got to better be some humans on the loop, right? Theatrical lighting designer. What would life look like with this equipment, with that equipment, with that equipment? What would it look like? How could you make it work throughout the whole play? A documentary producer. You need the action figures. You need to check things out. So I went back to this hip hop choreography and say, man, this looks completely stupid, but I bet somebody's already doing it. So sure enough, has anybody heard of like the ABBA avatars? Right, you can go to London. Right, my wife wants to go to London and see this show. Right, it's the avatars of the original ABBA cast. Right, doing this this show, and this is like I checked this out. Right, this is like a massive undertaking. It's like uses like high level technology on all different directions. Here are the original old people, right? The original old ABBA people, right? And what are those? I bet you guys know what those things are, what they're wearing. Those are motion detector suits, right? So when they get this, they'll know how the original players kind of strut their stuff on the stage. And so the avatars will strut their stuff in exactly the same kind of way. And they'll use like original remastered versions of the original recordings that ABBA did, right? And so the designer said that they're trying to work on bringing a version of this concert to New York City. So I might not have to take my wife to London to see it. Right?
Are they robots or is it like a?
No, it's more they're called holograms, where they actually see on the screen. There's no like people on the screen. It's interesting. It's kind of structuring entertainment and concerts. Yeah, my daughter and son-in-law paid like $20 to get just a recording of a Taylor Swift concert. Has anybody ever seen a Taylor Swift concert? If you haven't spent $20, then I guess the tickets like go up to like $1,500, right? But the presentation was just amazing, and it's taking place in like a huge stadium, like a football stadium, right? So you got this normal sized person down on the stage of the football stadium, but they have these giant screens all over the place, and of course, super duper audio, right? Speakers all over the place, right? So most of the people are not really that much directly reacting with this tiny little figure that you see 200 yards away, right? They're reacting with all the screens and with each other. right? That's the thing. I don't know if you go to music concerts, but one of the big things about a music concert is the vibe of the audience. You're part of a group. That makes you feel, yeah. I went to this concert. I could have listened to that same music on my record player, no problem. It would have cost me a lot less money and time than to go to this concert with 10,000 other people. But I remember the concert because I was part of that community, that group, that vibe, right? And so this is one of the things that that people are doing that's really revolutionizing concert going. So I still want to go out to the 40 Watt Club and pay $5 to see like the local garage band's latest thing, right? I don't want to get caught up and I've got to have this glitz and glamour, right? But it's kind of cool that it exists. Yeah. You're thinking about this. What do you think? Would you go to this concert?
No.
Yes. How about the Beatles? Next.
Yeah, but I think, well, what if you want, one of the questions they asked is like, what if you want to make a concert like this with Prince? Now, he's dead, okay? But a lot of his stuff is recorded. So you could actually do this, right? You could actually analyze all the things that Prince did on stage and recorded and put them together so that you could create a very believable simulacrum, an avatar of Prince dance on a stage with his backup band, and it would really feel like it was the real thing.
The legal issues instead.
Okay, yeah. There's so many intellectual property issues, right? Artists are freaking out. Artists are really reluctant to put any of their stuff on the web, because they got these little machines that are just gobbling everything up and using it as machines for training chatbots, large language models. All right, so what happens? Who owns that content? Right? Well, it's always been the case that it's always been the idea that, hey, the web is all about free information, right? So if you put your stuff out on the web, that means it's public information. Right? But now people are starting to question this because their entire livelihood is being sucked up by this stuff. So that's another thing that we have that's being disrupted.
It's a loss or a change of intimacy between the audience and performer. That I see. If I listen to someone sing, I'm much more comfortable in a smaller place where I have a voice and the intimacy of it.
I agree. Yeah.
If you go to a concert and you are just, that's a whole different kind of intimacy. And what you see is color and sound, but not the person real. And I think that loss of intimacy is, I don't know, all sorts of horrible things can eventually evolve from that.
Yeah, I totally agree. I totally hear you. And to me, what that says is we need more places like the Flicker Bar. You ever go down there? It's got this little room and they have little concerts where maybe like 30 people could maybe squeeze into this room, right? But it's very intimate. You're really connected with the people there. Chamber music was designed to be played in small rooms with small audiences, right? Yeah. So I think it would be a terrible tragedy if nobody did that anymore because they had all this glitz with ABBA and Taylor Swift. Right. Because what this technology should do is give us more time to practice our instruments so we can get our little garage band together, right? And play for 20 people, right? Or 50 people, right? And have a more intimate situation. Yeah, but I do like every once in a while to go to a massive concert. In fact, we made a whole road trip to New York City because my wife really wanted to see a Nightwish concert, and it was really great, but it didn't have all the glitz, right? It was during the COVID time, right? And she'd seen videos that had a massive light shows and a symphony orchestra, that kind of stuff. And didn't have it there at this little venue. But so there's something about this like super huge shows that's really attractive, but a little bit goes a long way. Right? I'd rather see the garage band down at 40 watt myself. Okay. What can you do with making a more just society? Right. I've got a friend who's working as a public defender. She's actually not a public defender herself, but she's working in the office. And I want to see if she's aware of any of this software, right? Public defenders are super dedicated people, but they're super overworked, right? If you've got deep pockets, you can have a whole lot more better representation in a criminal trial. Because you got a high-paid lawyer with all kinds of staff doing all this research that a public defender just can't match. So it's just not fair. But you can have software that can do all that stuff. That can look up all of the relevant cases, right? That can analyze all the police videos to see what might be going on, that kind of stuff. So could that be a way of using AI to increase justice in society? Again, we got some more ideas, so more different jobs. Again, these are all jobs, people doing their jobs, right? A journalist, well, journalists can get information, sift through all the piles of data. They can also produce personalized news. And I'm a little squeamish about this, about personalized news, right? That if we're all kind of hearing different news, especially from different ideological viewpoints, then we're not kind of living in the same world anymore. But that's already happening. We no longer have a very strong kind of common understanding or kind of worldview that most everybody agrees on, right? If you have two people of different sides of the political spectrum, they just don't live in the same world anymore. So the fact that you can do this is disturbing, but it's like part of what we have to deal with. The economist, I guess, pointed out that back in the days of the founding fathers, when they first formed this country, they still had a lot of separate news groups. Like news came from little local newspapers with small circulations, and they had different political ideas, and so a lot of things like that. But the people who made the decisions were just a small group of, what shall we say, the ruling class, the elite, the aristocrats, and then we had mass suffrage. Everybody can vote, but then you had Walter Cronkite, right? There's who can give us like a standard view that everybody can more or less share on. We disagree on whether we're liberal or conservative, but we all kind of agree on the basic facts of the case, right? But now we're going into a world where we have universal suffrage. Everybody can vote, but people can have like vastly different worldviews of what the actual facts of the case are. And it remains to be seen how well our society can handle it. And that's not even AI. It's just rapidly changing technology that creates challenges. We have to somehow think about the way we do things. I think most of us would agree that our political system is in trouble, but we don't have a really good sense of how to deal with it. We tend to think, well, there's a whole bunch of people. All the people who vote differently from me are idiots. I can't understand how anybody could possibly vote for that candidate over there, right? We got to go a little deeper than that. All right, we got to go a little deeper than that. Figure out, well, what's happening? What can we actually do? That's a totally unknown question to me. I have no idea. Well, we get to the end, probably we'll have time to talk about that. But anyway, election commissioners they need software to spot deep fakes and misinformation. Right? So people use misinformation in political campaigns all the time, but I don't think there's like really strong regulations. Like if you tell just like outright lies in a political campaign, nobody's gonna like throw you in jail for doing that, right? Unless you're speaking under oath. You can't tell you can get thrown in jail for telling an outright lie when you're testifying in a courtroom under oath. But otherwise, we need to preserve our freedom of speech, right? So people are going to do stuff that's false. One of the things that they're working on that I think would be really nice to see is a little button on your browser that says fact check. All right, so somebody's saying such and such, click that button. Is that really true or not? This technology can do that. So I think that's one of those things I'd really like to see, and I bet we'll see it pretty soon. But browsers with fact check buttons on. Right? Social media creators, right? Now I'm totally not a social media person. I'm like zero Facebook for me, but a lot of people are creating all kinds of interesting stuff. It's a very democratic medium. Right? You get people who have just created things about their things that they're really interested in. They're so clever that they have tens of thousands of followers, and they can't keep up with it. So you can make an avatar that would answer these questions just as you would, because it knows what you think. Right? It can be possible, right? Career changer. Somebody's trying to change their career. Right? How do you find the right job to go to? Right? Investigate the possibilities, right? To create your personal brand. When you're applying for jobs, I don't know how many people have recently applied for a job. Thankfully, it's been many, many, many years since they ever actually applied for a job, right? But I would always send like the same cover letter to everybody. Right, here I am, I'm Dan Everett, like, here's what I can do, right? Whereas my housemate, who's like 38 years old, when she applies for jobs, she spends hours carefully crafting the letters to go to each different possible employer to see what they would actually want. Well, that process could be automated, right? A manager can create tours of duty for an employee. So instead of letting the employee work in the same job all the time, they could work this for a couple of years in sales and a couple of years in the back office and whatever, right? These are all things that ChatGPT came up with. They're all things that are tools for people to use to make people's work go more efficiently, as productively, and have more fun. I wanted to know, well, who's going to get left behind? People in Africa are going to get left behind. Can this technology do anything for people in Africa? Well, it's being used now. They're doing things like looking for crop pests. That's the sort of thing where a pest infestation happens, and by the time you get organized to deal with anything about it, it's gobbling up half your country. So being able to predict pest infestations, this is something they're actually doing, I think, in Ghana. Right? COVID outbreaks. Where's COVID going to hit? They did that in South Africa. It really helped them control the COVID epidemic by knowing where's the problems. So if you know that this township is where a lot of problems are starting to occur, and you jump right in because you don't have the resources to deal with every place at the same time. You have to concentrate your forces on where the biggest problems are. That can help you deal with an epidemic, right? This is being done in Africa. Medicine delivery by drone. It's hard to ship medicines to places because the transportation is so poor. So you deliver it by drone. And then there's the problem of how do you use your drone the most efficiently to get the most medicines to the most people, right? Translating African languages. There's a whole lot of languages all over the world, but in Africa especially, that are being lost. Nobody is growing up knowing how to use these languages. And these are part of the cultural heritage. There's the different thought that goes with a different language. So they want to get these languages, digitize language, and then translate them into different languages so they kind of conserve the cultural heritage that's being lost to globalization. And of course, the limitations, so it's hard in Africa because they do not have the digital infrastructures that they need. But a lot of Africa, I think, has kind of passed pass over what we use in the 21st century. Like instead of building like phone lines all over the country, everybody's got a cell phone. Like nobody uses a LAN. Because they don't need to build all the lines, right? Just use cell phones, right? They're starting, people have a really hard time putting their money in a bank. You cannot build up your family's wealth if you can't put your money in a bank. But they started doing a lot of digital payment schemes so that people have access to financing, things like that. And the author of this book was really keen on a technology that he called, or process that he calls blitz scale. How do you take a small company and make it really big, really fast? In volatile markets, like they have in Africa, that would be a really useful thing to do. So there's lots of potentials where this technology can be used and is being used. And even though there's some missing ingredients, it's going to come along. I think the biggest missing ingredient is not the infrastructure, but the rule of law. Well, all these problems like that we're talking about, like losing people's jobs, intellectual property rights. These are legal questions, and a lot of these African countries are the subject to one coup after another. You don't have the solid rule of law that kind of builds up a democratic country, but it's possible. You got this technology, you may as well use it to support our own human values. Okay. So all the stuff has been talking about how to do your job better. But I don't get paid to do a job anymore. I'm retired. Okay. And so I'm using this to kind of explore the world. Right. I spent like the last 55 of my years focusing on math and computer science. Now I'll explore all the other parts of human knowledge, but there's so much stuff out there. But this technology allows me to create little vignettes that can illustrate different parts of things. So I think this first one, this is the one that Hoffman kind of came up with. He asked ChatGPT to do this. So he asked them to create an interview between a Guyana historian and activist, and so it should be historian and activist, and the French historian Fernand Braudel. Just kind of, and they have this really interesting conversation about kind of the impacts of colonialism on Guyana. Really stimulating stuff, right? I ran into Dostoevsky's story of the Grand Inquisitor. Anybody ever see that? Fascinating story. It's a story Dostoevsky wrote. Jesus returns to Earth into Spain in the middle of the Inquisition, right? Where they're burning hundreds of heretics at the stake, right? And the Grand Inquisitor spots him, locks him up in jail, and then comes into jail and explains why they need to like burn him at the stake, even though they know he's Jesus, right? Why they need to do that. It's really a deep and thoughtful piece. It really makes you think. I say, okay, well, how do these ideas kind of relate to my religious ideas? So what would Dostoevsky have thought about my religion? All right. There's some really interesting stuff out there. Right. I asked for an erotic story written in the style of Ferdinand not Braudel, but he's a historian, of Baudelaire. It was really nice. It was really sweet. It wasn't raunchy at all. A very sweet, romantic type of story, right? There's all kinds of things that I can play with as part of my kind of exploration. I don't have time to read all the literature of Braudel, of Baudelaire, right? I don't have time to even reread all of Dostoevsky, which I used to love when I was a kid. But there's so much I can do, so much I can explore. So last slide, okay, so I asked ChatGPT, how can you improve the lives of retired people? Right? And they gave me this laundry list of 10 different things that they can do to help. I think probably a lot of us are retired here, right? So to help us as we go on to like the next phase of our lives, right? And to me, a lot of this is really resonance because it's a lot about now that we don't have to work anymore, it's time to explore. It's time to do different things. It's time to work on our beekeeping. It's time to make that really beautiful cabinet that that we've always wanted to do, but we've never had time to do. Right? It's time to learn a new language. All right. That kind of thing. Right. And all of these are kind of potential uses that we can actually make of this technology. Right? So I kind of want to close with that because this is the kind of essence of the boomer argument, that there's all these really cool things that we can do. Now, every one of these things, except for what retired people do, is going to cause disruption and problems because it's changing the traditions and patterns we've developed over centuries and decades for how we do stuff. All of a sudden, things are changing really rapidly. So what does that require? It requires citizens. It requires citizens to think about this, talk with each other about this, and be a part of our government's slow reaction to this. So I think this is an opportunity. We don't need to be afraid of this. It's not going to do you any good to be afraid of it anyway, right? If you have fun with this, it puts you in the best possible position to be a good citizen and help deal with all the problems about it. So start by having fun, and then we'll work from there. Okay, now your thoughts. Tell me what you think.
You mentioned the short story, I guess, in the form of bottle air.
Yeah.
That you thought was interesting.
Yeah.
What if you self-publish that?
Oh yeah, that's an intellectual property issue.
Well,
right?
is it?
Yeah.
How long has he been dead?
Well, yeah, you can't copyright his Baudelaire anymore, right? But
But it's in the style of it.
It's in the style. It's in his style, right? Yeah, yeah. So can I really take credit for it? Because it's like Baudelaire. But the thing is, everything we create is in some sense derivative. We're not ever like building anything just from ground zero. Like we're the first ape to have achieved consciousness and figured out how to build them. Right? We're always doing it in the context of people have been building things and creating things for centuries and millennia, and they've created a culture that allows us to ask the questions and answer them. Right? So I guess I'm thinking that if you publish something, you should really I don't know if there's actually any rules of that, but you shouldn't be able to publish anything from ChatGPT and say I wrote this. I didn't write it. I just asked ChatGPT and she wrote it. Right. So what do you think? Do you think it's okay to publish that?
You could do the same thing as that author. He put his name plus with ChatGPT.
Yeah. He said he wanted to give credit to ChatGPT, but he didn't want to claim the results of everything that ChatGPT did.
Right. And two other things when you said, how are we going to keep politicians honest? Well, you came up with the answer. You said, if you swear an oath, then it's a felony. So we could ask all politicians to take an oath before they did anything.
That would shut down a lot of politicians, wouldn't it?
And the other thing I was thinking is, I wonder how many authors who sat down and used this to write their next book.
Yeah.
And then just went through and mixed it up a little bit and went, well, that's my book.
Well, yeah, but on the other hand, I try to write letters to the editor on climate issues, and I'm using the correct facts as best I know them. But what if I get something wrong? Right? Could I be thrown in jail for lying? Right? That's not my intention to do. Right? But again, having technology that does the grunt work would give me more time to make sure my facts are correct before I write anything. I try to do that. Yeah. I think again, that's something that is the sort of thing that might be a change that solves the problem, but it really impacts people's civil rights, the rights of free speech, to make everybody swear on the Bible before you write a letter to the editor, you know, or be a politician. Yeah,
that's probably what we need in our society. Everybody's running off at the mouth all the time, and so if we kind of, careful what you say.
Yeah. I'm not going to sit here and say you shouldn't do that, because we really need to fix some of these problems. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Shut a lot of people.
This is great. Everybody wants to talk at once. That's a perfect discussion section. Yeah.
Yeah, all the stuff you talked about, to me, the scariest single thing you mentioned was grading papers.
Oh, yeah.
3 examples. Okay, so your large language model like ChatGPT is working with 500 billion or 1 trillion tokens and analyzing papers. One example is, what if somebody is the most creative writer that ever came up with, but it doesn't follow the norms of what the model is digesting from a zillion different books. Second example, okay, a math quiz, okay? Probably it has one right answer, but if you have to turn in your work papers, what if somebody came up with some brilliant, better way of solving that math problem, but got the same answer, the right one? And the third serious example, Albert Einstein in 1906, coming up with his incredibly groundbreaking paper on special relativity. And what if the chatbot looked at that and just laughed it out of the room, saying, no, it doesn't work like that. Newton had it right. Space-time doesn't bend. Go back to examining patterns.
Yeah, I think there's one thing that I'm always conscious of is that ChatGPT appears to like know everything, but all it does is it's process past human writing. Right? If anybody comes up with something really totally new that doesn't fit into the pattern, ChatGPT just won't recognize it. So we've got to be prepared for that, right? So I would hope that I had help my students be confident enough that they could come to me and say, hey, Dr. Dan, the grade says this is wrong, but it's actually right, and I'm going to tell you why it's right. If I could be confident in that, then I would be much less scared of having ChatGPT grade my students' papers, because they're going to tell me if something's wrong, and I'm going to fix it. It's not going to replace me. It's going to be a tool. All right, instead of having to slog through 200 papers, I'm going to have to look more closely at 5 papers that the students didn't think were done right. That's kind of the way I like to see this used. Yeah.
I was just gonna say, it's just a tool.
It's a tool.
It expands the option for a teacher to delve more thoroughly into what students write or how they solve. If you're a math person, someone comes up with a unique solution and the chatbot says that's wrong. It's my job as the teacher to explore that further with the student, which expands everybody's thinking.
Yeah.
Another interesting thing that I thought is there anything wrong with a well-written novel that chatbot wrote? I mean, if we know it, what's the problem?
Yeah,
It's fiction.
Yeah,
maybe,
yeah.
Oh, so is half the stuff we read, fiction.
Yeah, of course, the thing. Yeah, the thing is, there's already a pile of novels by Bogler that I haven't had time to read. Right, I just picked this one little fragment. Something I wanted to see. All right, and now looking at that, I say, hey, this is really cool. I think I'm going to read some actual novels by this guy. I like the style. Yeah, yeah.
Well, we talk about the consequences of something. You have to look at the consequences. And I read recently about the appearance of cotton in America in the 19th century and how it deepened and molded the hard racism that was in this country, which extended well into the 20th century. And it was because the cotton is new and produced money and power. That, goes back to that whole thing about corruption. What are the consequences of this? And because you have to have at the base of your analysis the nature of the human being, that power grows and becomes the most important force. So looking at something and seeing what the consequences of that are becomes much, much more important as time passes. And today, something can happen with AI, and there will be 1,000 different consequences to it. Okay, and who does that kind of evaluation and analysis?
Well, on your point, I mean, cotton was grown prior to America. So when cotton was grown previously, it would be the same.
Oh, can't do that. Shoot.
It didn't create the industry and the capitalist release of money, power.
Well, along those same lines, it's like, okay, so we've talked about all the good things that chatbot could do. Are we very confident that corporations aren't using that to increase profits?
Yes.
Instead of looking at the help it provides for individual workers. I mean, the dangers are out there. That's why everybody's talking about it. So it's easy to talk about these little things that sort of make life good, but are bad actors coming in and corrupting it for future gains and profits? Yeah. And then we get into whole politics and everything. Yeah. So I don't think we need to go there, but
I don't have to discuss politics, but it's part of the challenge.
Yeah, we're not going to be able, we don't have any politics going on in this room right now, but we're not going to be able to stay away from it. No. It's got to be part of the whole thing. But yeah.
I mean, I thought that Jefferson had, what, 300 soldiers?
Yeah. Okay.
I was thinking about, to me, that politics and intelligence, like everything else we have created, you can use for good and use for bad. It's always
like any other technology. That's right.
Okay, what you come up with, all gonna be like nothing good.
Yep.
Use for bad.
Yep. No doubt about that. No doubt about that.
And I'll put a plug in for education, because if people are educated, then you don't fall into the traps.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only thing I can think of that's going to help our political system is having better educated people. That's the only thing I can think of. Anyway, this is the end of the class, so please feel free to stay on, hang out and chat for a while. I'm having a good time. But for those of you who don't, thank you so much for letting me be back in the sage on the stage, as I like to say. Back the old school teacher. I really enjoyed doing that. Thank you so much. I'll see you again next lights. Is when they first started building this
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. That was good, thanks.
Hey, thank you for coming. It's really fun.
I haven't been on a hike.
Thank you very much. It was a couple of stimulating sessions.
Oh, thanks. Glad you like it, Rod.
Yes,
It's
thank
fun.
you.
It's super fun to do.
Oh, it's been wonderful for me too.
Oh.
Keep doing it.
I will.
I was interested in those 3 words for Google search at one time. I this book that published. I can't remember the name of it. Now that I forget it. So that those 3 words, which side is it on YouTube or something?
No, it's a little more. little tricks that came up with the classes, right? Whenever, I always figure like, whenever I have a good idea, somebody else has already thought. Right?
Yes, me too.
Somebody already else has already figured this out.
Yes.
Every once in a while, you need to publish stuff.
So my question was,
Yes.
so let's say Stephen King. Stephen King is and he's probably saying, right, about his stuff. And these are the founders of the book. And so then it's 6 months work, and then he just tweaks it. And he
Yeah, and probably doesn't even sound like a bad one, you know?
Exactly.
It's great stuff, right?
Exactly, but then.
And there's already way more books to review it.
Exactly, and all those authors of which I don't read, they have it. Everybody loves it, so it's very easy for me.
Yeah.
And then when he has to say
Yeah, that's like a legal issue, right? Yeah.
Somebody's gonna be able to find that before he lives. After he's published it, he's selling it, and then say, wait a minute.
Yeah.
And they're gonna pull him down because he didn't do the work.
Yeah, and if they had a rule and expectation that you have to let them know, it become normal practice.
Right, and if he's doing it, the people who love his work is not coming out fast enough, they can just go put it in.
They can just make their own, write their own. Yeah. I want to focus on the detector that falls in love with the cleaning lady, you know? Yeah.
In the Stephen King style.
Yeah.
What was it gonna?
Yeah, is that, well, it's not gonna.
No,
But what I want to stay away from is just rejecting something because it's not the way we always do it. Yeah. We're gonna lose that fight. You're gonna lose that fight. Yeah. We can't do this, because we never do this.
But I'm getting older. There's new stuff.
Yeah.
I look forward to.
Yeah, let's see. Here, let's see, the old story that Confucius was asked for a thing that was at once a blessing and a curse. And he replied, may you live in interesting times. We got that's an urban lesson. Right. A good story. I like it.
That's good.
Got it.
Let's see, how can I turn this screen on? Oh, hey, thanks for all those great questions, man. I appreciate it.
I don't even have a computer, but I enjoy learning stuff.
Oh, yeah, well, that's great.
Yeah, you know that.
Huh?
They said the more education you get, the better off you be.
I hope.
It can't be so the problem we got now. We're highly educated people.
And they're still stupid. I know. What else can you do, right?
Unless you change the heart and mindset of people, you can have a police board every corner, still gonna have crime.
You know, that's a really good point. Somebody was saying, they asked their students, like, where do you go for knowledge? And the students said, science. And then he asked them, where do you go for wisdom? I had no answer. Where do you go for wisdom? Right? If you're to not do bad things, you need wisdom. Well, where do you get that? That's what churches are supposed to do. Right?
I see. I said, because I believe with the person they told us that we have more knowledge now than the history of the world. And I agree with that. So, okay. So I've got some problem now. If we got all this knowledge, I said, so that proves that knowledge by itself is not good. It'd be like going back to church, and I told them, I said, if I heard of boys say, I'm going to give you all the knowledge in the world, I will wait. Then I would say, no. And the kids say, why would you say no? I said, because of my faith, I will know that it's not God. Because he knows if he just give me all the knowledge, I'm going to kill myself. I just know something.
I hear you.
Yeah, that's been on job. Even on your job, I bet you, your first day job, they tell you so much. And the next day, they give you some more. Because they told you everything the first day, you mess up second day. Because you got too much. Say that thing about the TV and Walker Contact. That's all. I know you can watch him. We did Walker Contact.
Yeah.
You could come to me and say, what happened today?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But with
You
12
can have
hours,
a place to start talking.
yeah, for 12-hour news, what happened there? It was so much, it overloaded my brain.
I know.
I don't know
You're absolutely right. That's absolutely right. It's the way it works. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, gave me 24-hour news. So I got too much, so you know, overload. And I told myself, like, watch the Super Bowl. She was talking about that. I would do argument. We were our own debate team. So he was saying, movies and TV don't influence you. It's like a prove it. I know it. And say, Mercedes Benz, the man that run it. So what do we know about him? We know he might make money. Peace Hut. We know about that man. You know how to make money. So no sponsor. We know how to make money. So that's one thing we know about. Why would these men that know how to make money spend $20 million on a 30-second commercial? And then this year, it's 25 million, and they don't argue.
They don't bargain, right?
It's okay. That's all I say.
Take it or leave it, right? Yeah.
Oh, they'll come to
Thank you very much.
Thank you. That was fun. Thanks for your good comments. I really appreciate that.
Do some more.
Will do.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll come out here to talk about Budweiser. Why would they spend $20 million on a 30-second commercial? Because we know they know how to make money. We don't know nothing else about them. And then they come back next year, they tell Budweiser, well, 30 seconds is going to cost you $25 million this year. And Budweiser say, okay. So that goes show they know they're going to make an influence on people. Because people that make money, they ain't throwing money away, not $20 million. Right. And they'll do, I ain't never thought about it. I said, yeah. I said, like I said, my comment was simple. The man who invented dynamite was to mine. I think he has a scholarship for people who want to go to college because he was upset because we took dynamite and blow people up with it.
Yeah, that's
that's
where the Nobel Prizes come from. The guy who made his money inventing explosives.
Yeah, he didn't want for that.
Yeah,
mine.
Yeah,
he didn't want you blow. I take it blow your house up.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, the drones. The dude who invented drones, the military saw this. Oh, we can use this to kill people. He didn't invent the drones to kill people. I said, but I'm scared right now. The closer we get into a Star Trek, I can point a laser at you and you just integrate, it's gonna be real damage because you can kill easily because there's no blood.
Well, that's a real fear. The military technology gets so good. Like back when I was a kid, we worried about nuclear weapons, and they're still there. But we got other things to worry about now. Yeah,
because like you were talking there, they were saying like, I think somebody had said, well, they have a treaty. Every country, I think, have a treaty not to use chemical warfare and biological war. But every country still got the gas.
Still got them. Yeah. Good comments, my friend. Thank you so much.
You're talking like super.
Oh, thank you.
You made things.
Thank you.
Like I tell people, if you're a teacher, whoever you are, you want to teach like Jesus. So everybody knows what you're talking about. I said, that's why you always have parables. So you're a farmer. I taught you the farmer thing. I said, politicians do that. You have a man that was born in New York, come down south. How you all doing? You see what? And the other thing I was thinking about when you're talking about the TV commercial stuff, politicians. I think one of the things that hurt us real bad when they took the Fair Doctrine Act out.
The Fair Doctrine Act, yeah.
That was nice though, because if I said something about you, we had to be on the same program on the radio,
right?
Or you had the same slot the next day, too.
Yeah.
But now no Fair Doctrine, I can come on Fox News.
Yeah,
say much about all.
I totally agree with you about that. Yeah.
I said, that was a hard move right there. You don't want to get, I said, listen what the name said, FAB. It's a FAB document. So if I tell a lie, you need to be setting it, they need to be, he said, no, I got the facts here. And I was not at work that day. But and the other time you come out, what's it called? Targeting news. That was fucking new nigga was targeting. I mean,
yeah, they don't send you like
they got
you different news from the next guy.
I said, the dude that owned the company and the man that worked there, he got sued because they said on the oath, yeah, we tell lies. So I'm saying, like, how can you watch something when the person tells you, yeah, we tell lies?
Yeah, there's all these questions of how do we handle this, and we don't have the answers to them.
Yeah, and it was our fault also. I think it was Reagan Nixon. When the news people helped out too, they said, well, we caught them doing this. Listen to us tonight, and we're gonna see what kind of spin they're gonna put on. If you catch your wife with another man, you don't want to hear about no spin. You want to know what you do.
What you do there? Yeah.
You don't want to know about no spin.
Very good point. Yeah. Very good point.
I said, new people helped out. They help you tell a lie. They said we caught you doing this. Now we're gonna wait. And they said that we're gonna wait till we see what kind of White House, what kind of spin they put on it. What you mean you wait? Because that means you say you caught him doing it. What kind of spin?
Yeah. What does it matter what spin they put on? Like what actually happened? Yeah. Right.
I said did it on the news. It was like a soap opera, when you say, or when we watch a cowboy movie, they say, well, tune in next week to see what happens. Well, how you think we're gonna what's your outlook though?
Well, again, I tend to have
all that in mind, like
I'm always optimistic. I always stay optimistic because it's more fun. But I try to be honest. We got serious challenges. As a people, as humans, we've faced a lot of serious challenges before, and we're still here. Right. So there's some way we're going to get through this.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
I have to think more about that because since I don't have a computer, and once I get one, I might change this.
So you're going to get a computer? Do you want to get a computer?
I might get one here. Me personally, right now, I would not build a machine that's smarter than me. That's just me.
Yeah, I get it. It's so scary to build a machine that's smarter than us, but
did you see that movie where the machine took over and they ended up blowing it up? I can't think of the name of the movie. It's been about 20 or 30 years.
Are you talking about the Terminator? Where they sent these killer robots back from?
No, it was I just saw part of it. I told a fellow about he knew the name of the movie. Anyway, the man, it was a supercomputer. And in the movie, he was talking to the computer like I'm talking to you. So then he said, George, I'm going to turn you off. And so the computer said, I don't want to be turned. And so they got into an argument. Like me, you get an argument.
Oh, this was at 2001?
Yeah, my bad.
Yeah.
That was cool.
The computer didn't want to be turned off. Yeah.
And so then he walked over there and they put up a magnetic field. And then they tried to bomb it for a magnetic field. And they went to, because I see the end of it. I think they killed the computer some kind of way. But in the movie, they went to the other computers, but the supercomputer had took over the other computer.
Oh, I think that's a different movie.
Yeah.
That
was cool though.
That's interesting. That's neat. I got to go to another thing, but it's really fun. Thank you so much for all your comments in class. And it was really fun being here with you. Ta-ta.